And we're on. Hello and welcome to Nerdtopia. Or today, me. That's the quickest name I could come up with. Nerdtopia. I've probably already taken. I've found channels that I wanted to name my channel Nerd City, but there was already a Nerd City out there. Then I was going to go to Nerd Kingdom.
Of course there was.
Of course, yeah. I was going to go to Nerd Kingdom, but there was already a Nerd Kingdom, so Nerdtopia is the fastest I could come up with.
There's probably a Nerdtopia too.
Probably.
Okay, but anyway.
Today we're going... Oh, yes, what are you playing?
I'm playing Battlefield 1, and Brayden is playing...
Minecraft. I am going to walk through my Batman world as me and Tim review our top 5 Batman villains. So how this list's going to work is I'm going to give my number 5, then he will give his, and then he's going to give his number 4, or I'm going to give my number 4 and he's going to give his, and on until we get to number 1. Are you ready?
Okay, I'll be back real quick.
Okay. Okay, may I go first with my number 5?
Sure.
Okay, I'm going to be honest, I kind of am cheating with my number 5 because I could not pick between these two characters. So my number 5 is Catwoman tied with Two-Face. So...
From what?
Period, I guess. I'll list my favorite versions of the characters and why I like them so much and maybe my favorite comics from them. So... Catwoman, I'll head over to Catwoman's base in this Minecraft world to talk about her. So Catwoman is one of Batman's oldest villains, actually appearing in the first issue of his solo comic, along with the Joker. And back then, she was less of the anti-hero we know her as now, and more just a straight-up villain. And that's more how I like her. My favorite version of Catwoman is when she's just a regular villain, like in Batman Brave and the Bold, and in the Batman 1960s TV show. I am getting a tad bit bored of the modern, version of Catwoman, and, with her just being an anti-hero, I feel like it's getting old. So, hopefully in the Batman 2022, yes, it was pushed back to 2022, hopefully when she appears in that movie, she will not be an anti-hero and just a straight-up villain. And then,
I agree.
Uh-huh.
I don't want her to be an anti-hero. I like her as a villain more. But it's worse with being Batman's lover. I just dislike that because I feel like he shouldn't, because then he, has a reason to live.
Yeah.
And the whole point of Batman is to get basically what he thinks is revenge and just justice.
His reason to live is, his reason to live is Gotham. That's what he does everything for. And I feel like the best story to explore that was the movie Batman Mask of the Phantasm, where we see Batman, being Batman, starting to become Batman, and then actually falling in love. And it's interesting because I love the scene where he's at his graveyard, kneeling before his parents' grave, and he says, "I just want it to be different now. I know I made a promise to you, but I didn't see this coming. I didn't count on being happy." And I really love that scene. And while I do like Catwoman as Batman's love interest, and she's probably my favorite of all of his love interests, I feel like it works better whenever she isn't, he doesn't love her. It's just, her loving him. Her just being obsessed.
The art series.
Kind of, yeah. Her just being obsessed with him. Whenever I'm writing Batman, I portray her as, a deranged killer who's obsessed with Batman. And then my also number 5, tied with Catwoman, is Two-Face. I love Two-Face. I know Grayson's probably going to disagree because he also loves Two-Face and probably a lot more than I do. I do like Two-Face a lot, though. One of my favorite comics. It probably is my favorite Batman comic, tied with Batman Zero Year, Batman The Long Halloween. It's a Two-Face origin story, and it's fantastic. One of the greatest works of art in Batman history. And then the first Batman comic I ever read was actually a Two-Face comic. So I do love Two-Face. I just find him he's probably he probably is the most interesting character in Batman's rogues gallery. He's probably the most insane. member of Batman's Rogues Gallery. My favorite version of him outside of the comics is, of course, Batman the Animated Series, because other than that show, nothing outside of the comics has really reached, like, perfection for Two-Face yet. All right, now what is your... Oh, yes.
On the other hand, of Two-Face, well, I'm going to talk about a different Two-Face, because my first one is Two-Face, but from a different series. I say one of the good Two-Faces is that Dark Knight, because usual Two-Faces don't really, like from Batman Brave and the Bold, he wasn't fully about revenge, which is kind of his thing. He wants revenge against Batman for what he did to him, ruining his life.
I do think the revenge aspect can work with Two-Face. I don't think that's what he's all about, but I do think him wanting revenge on Batman is good, and I think The Dark Knight did his character well. I do think he was unfairly botched, and spoiler alert, with his death. I do think that the Joker got more attention, and I would enjoy another live-action Two-Face. But I think that movie did what Batman Forever from the 90s did wrong, where Two-Face wanted revenge on Batman in that movie, sure, but he was portrayed as just pure evil. He didn't have a split personality. There was no divide. He wasn't as sympathetic in any way, shape, or form. He was just a boring evil villain who wanted revenge on Batman, and I do think that's what The Dark Knight did well with him. So is The Dark Knight Two-Face your number 5?
No, he actually isn't.
Oh, so I assume he's going to be higher on the list. What is your number 5?
Yes. My number 5 is the Mob from Batman Year One. The reason it's the number 5 is because, well, Year One is just a great Batman movie in my opinion. The Gordon actor is, I don't know his name, but he's the guy from the Breaking Bad TV show, which was a really big TV show. I just feel like he even looks like Gordon in some ways, including the mustache. But he really hit the spot with the Gordon thing. But the reason it's the Mob is because, like, spoiler alert, the police chief is a part of the Mob.
Really? I'm planning on reading the book soon, so I have not actually watched the movie, which I've told you before.
So the Mob is like such a big thing in Gotham. It controls it from behind, like the Court of Owls, except criminally.
Yeah, I know a little bit about that book. I haven't read it or watched the movie, but I do know that Carmine Falcone is like the mob leader in that movie, and that's one of the most famous Batman books ever, which is why Carmine Falcone is usually considered to be the leader of the mob before, like, Penguin shows up and stuff. So, I do like Carmine Falcone, and I like the mob in Gotham. To me, they're not as interesting as some of the other more colorful Batman villains, but I do think I like how, like, before Batman gets there, most of the criminals in Gotham were just regular mob folk. But whenever Batman comes in, it's when all the crazy cooks like the Joker and the Penguin and Riddler come in. Which the episode...
Did you say the Penguin?
I said Penguin. Which the episode Trial from Batman the Animated Series actually explores about Batman and how, like, they're, like, did Batman's villains create Batman, or did Batman create his villains? And I thought it's a very interesting concept. And I thought that's one you can explore well with the mob. So, my number 4 is the Penguin. Penguin. I love Penguin. Penguin's great. He was originally going to be higher on he was going to be higher on this list, yeah, but there's but number 3 was slightly able to beat him out. Penguin's just great. Like, if you don't like Penguin, what are you doing with your life? He's just such an entertaining character. My favorite version of the Penguin is Penguin, Pain and Prejudice, a Batman comic book, and it's one of my favorite Batman comics of all time. Definitely the greatest Penguin story ever told. My favorite version of Penguin outside of the comics, however, is in Batman the Animated Series, the TV show Gotham, and in the Arkham games. And I like them all for different reasons. I think Penguin really, in the animated series, they really nailed the tragic, gentleman of crime version of him. in the Arkham games, they nailed like the gritty mobster version, and in Gotham, they nailed like the more unhinged mobster Penguin, which I love. So I just love Penguin. He's just a great character in my opinion, and I highly recommend.
Forgot.
Oh, what did I forget?
One thing about Penguin.
Oh yes, Danny DeVito. Danny DeVito's
the Penguin.
Oh, his
the Penguin is what I like to explain as Penguin being a penguin.
Oh, yeah,
eating fish and showing signs of other.
I do kind of like that version of Penguin. I prefer my Penguin as more of a gentleman, but I like exploring Penguin's physical deformities. Like, back in the old classic era of Batman comics, he was a little weird looking, but he wasn't as deformed as he is now. And I really like a dark, deformed, ugly looking Penguin who eats fish, but who was also like a gentleman. And that was kind of what the movie Batman Returns was trying to do with Danny DeVito playing him. And Danny DeVito gave a great performance, but the writing for him could have been better. He wasn't sympathetic enough, and he wasn't that much of a gentleman. I think that, like, in the animated series, he was still an ugly, like, monster, but he was just such a gentleman. He was like, there's a reason Penguin's called the Gentleman of Crime. And you could tell how smart he was. And the actor, I can't remember his name, but the voice actor gave a great performance. So yeah, the animated series Penguin is my favorite version of the Penguin. And the comic Penguin, Pain and Prejudice is my favorite Penguin story. And Penguin's great. If you don't like Penguin, what are you doing with your life? And Grayson, if Penguin's not on your list, I will be mad. Okay, who is your number 4?
We're gonna be mad. My number 4 is, well, here, let me find out real quick. I forgot. My number 4 is Scarecrow from the Arkham series. I personally don't like Scarecrow that much, but I just feel like in the Scarecrow series, it's just perfectly good. He wants Gotham. His main goal is just to make Gotham have fear.
Mm-hmm. That is,
and he thinks,
that's how I like my
Scarecrow. The criminals of Gotham think that Batman is fear, and he just wants to show that it's not.
He is, yeah. That is a great version of Scarecrow. Probably my favorite version of him outside of comics and stuff. The Scarecrow in comics hasn't been that great, but Scarecrow's just a great character. You'll see him later on this list, and yeah, Scarecrow is one of my favorite Batman villains. He will be on my list, and I assume Grayson knows exactly where he'll be.
Yeah. Another thing about Scarecrow is the depiction of him. I've seen in different things where he just has a bag over his head, or he, looks like Scarecrow, the like open mouth boogeyman looking thing from A Night of Halloween. I personally like the boogeyman version of him, because Boogeyman 100%. Is like scary.
In the Arkham games,
people know him as a scary person, so the Boogeyman look really feels right for him.
My favorite version of Scarecrow outside of the comics is the Arkham games, and that's for a couple reasons. The portrayal is amazing. The voice actor in both games where he was voiced were amazing. I think I prefer Dino Andrade, but the other guy in Arkham Knight did a great job too. And I think I like Arkham Knight Scarecrow better. 1, because I like the design a little bit more. And 2, because I like the grand scope of his plan. And I like how that game made Scarecrow into such a big threat. And that's the only thing outside of the comics that has featured Scarecrow with him as the main villain, to my knowledge.
Well, then again, he wasn't really a main villain in Arkham. He was the reason of Joker.
He was, yeah.
But
in Arkham Knight, the fear
toxin. He's not really the main villain, because most of the time he's trying to fight away Joker, which is what Scarecrow did to him.
Yeah.
That's kind of the whole enemies of the game. And what I really feel about that is that he's not quite the main villain. He tries to be the main villain. They try to make him a big villain, but Joker just
Joker
kind of
is the
takes
main
the
villain.
spot for him.
Yeah, like how I like to think of it is Arkham Knight, who spoilers is Jason Todd, Red Hood, Batman's fallen Robin. Arkham Knight is the central antagonist of the game because he's like the one you're fighting a lot of the time. He's the one who's like the game is named after. But I wouldn't call him the main villain just because he becomes more of a good guy at the end. I think that, and I think that, and I think that Scarecrow's the main antagonist, but Joker's the main villain. Scarecrow's the person you're fighting throughout the entire game, but Joker is the driving force of the entire game. And Joker gets more time to develop, so I like to think of them both as the main villain, but I will have to sadly admit that Joker gets more screen time. And speaking of Joker, my number 3 is Joker. Okay, this is... it's like I'm ashamed to have Joker so high on my list.
Because he's just everywhere.
Joker is everywhere. In the last 10 years, there have been around 10 mainline comic stories about the Joker. In the last 10 years, Scarecrow has gotten 1, Penguin has gotten around 2, and Poison Ivy, Two-Face has gotten 1, and then characters like Poison Ivy, Clayface, Mr. Freeze have gotten 0, which just makes me really sad. I love Joker. Joker is an amazing character, but I hate, there's nothing wrong with Joker as a character. He's a perfect character. But DC...
Just overused.
DC ruins him by using him so much. I would love Joker. He may even be my favorite Batman villain if he just wasn't used so much. If he didn't take the spotlight away from Scarecrow and Two-Face and Poison Ivy, etc. Because he's been like we were just talking about, he was the main villain in all 4 Arkham games. And in Arkham Origins, can I spoil Arkham Origins for you, Grayson?
Yeah, I already know a lot about it.
Yeah, Black Mask is said to be the main villain. Gotcha, Black Mask was Joker in disguise. In Arkham Knight, it's gonna be Scarecrow. Scarecrow's finally gonna get a big role. Gotcha, it's Joker. And then in, Arkham City, Hugo Strange was supposed to be the main villain, but gotcha, it was Ra's al Ghul, and never mind, gotcha, it was Joker again. It was just annoying. The Arkham games and the comics are, in my opinion, the best example of how overused he is. And the fact that he's gotten his own movie, for crying out loud. Here's what I want to happen. I want Joker to be put on hiatus for 5 years. 5 years of no Joker. Then when he comes back, other villains get their time to shine, and DC sees that the other villains are marketable as well. And then when Joker is allowed to come back, he's used, but he's used less. I want all villains are created equal.
The thing is about Joker, putting him on the side for 5 years is probably going to make Batman even more, not here anymore. Because, that doesn't really make sense. Batman is kind of forgot about with all the Marvel and Star Wars series.
He is the most popular
DC is kind of dying.
DC is
and
dying.
Everyone knows who Joker is, and probably more than they do Poison Ivy, the rest
Scarecrow.
of the gang.
I'm mostly speaking
and so I feel like if they put him to the side, he's probably just gonna die with the rest of DC right now.
I'm kind of...
DC has a very strong comic book fan base, but...
I'm kind of not really wanting him to be banned in everything, but just comics. And not even banned, just useless. He doesn't even need to be banned. I was kind of exaggerating. I just want him to be used less and for other people to get their time to shine. So sure, put him in the movies, put him in the comics, but don't put him in every single movie and every single comic. But yeah, who was your number 3, Grayson? Or what number? Yeah, you're on number 3.
My number 3 is Deathstroke from The Son of Batman.
Really?
Did you watch Son of Batman?
I did watch Son of Batman.
Yeah,
Yes.
Son of Batman is just one of the best, the series that it's a part of is just a really good series, but Deathstroke really shined in The Son of Batman for me because he was the main villain in that.
Yeah. You don't
sure, there were other, villains, Ra's al Ghul, things like that, but he was the, main shining villain.
Yeah, you don't really see Deathstroke as the main villain normally. He's usually just a plot device. He's usually just the assassin that Black Mask or Penguin sends after Batman. But in, like, that movie, I do think that movie has one of the best portrayals of Deathstroke. And while that movie's villains, I think, are good, I wouldn't call them great. I do think that the main focus of that movie is Damian and Batman. And not that I dislike that. I love Batman-focused stories, of course. But I think that, I feel like that didn't give enough time for Deathstroke to shine completely in that movie. But it is probably my favorite version of Deathstroke, definitely.
But Deathstroke, another thing about him is why I listed him so high, is, like, in general, he's just a cool character. It makes sense. Things like that. There's different, like, variants and stories like there is with every comic book character. But my favorite one is definitely that he was taught by Ra's al Ghul. And then he wants revenge for, like, because Ra's al Ghul stopped him and thought that he was, like, villain material and betrayed them, things like that. And the other ones just don't make as much sense to me as that one. And that was him in The Son of Batman, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was a great movie, one of my favorites. I don't think it'd make it into my top 5 Batman movies, but it is definitely in my top 10. So my number 2. Wait, yeah, what number am I on? What number am I on? Yeah, number 2. I'm on number 2 because Joker was my number 3. Okay. Number 2 is the Riddler. Okay, I know Grayson might disagree with me, as Riddler is in... You are not a big fan of Riddler, as you find his sequences in the Arkham games kind of tedious, but they're honestly supposed to be. Riddler is supposed to be that annoying guy who everyone hates. He's supposed to be the snarky, egotist, smug, just insane guy, and I love Riddler. I recently, one of my favorite YouTubers, go check out Mr. Rogues. He just recently did a top 10 Riddler stories list. And after that, I was like, huh. So I went out and checked some of them out. And I'm loving Riddler even more than I ever have. Because there was Batman 0 Year, which is probably my favorite Batman story of all time. It's a Batman origin that actually had Riddler as the main villain. Because it was like after Batman becomes Batman, Riddler takes over the city. And his goal, it's so funny, his goal is actually to make Gotham smarter. He thinks that people are stupid, and so he takes over Gotham and tries to, like, quiz them and tries to, like, make them smart again. And it's great. It was a great story.
The thing is that I don't like about Riddler is, well, he's just, I feel like he's full of himself. He's not that smart.
He is full of himself. I wish he was
just like, Enigma from the early comic book series where he was insane and he had a mental thing.
He does have a mental thing.
So when he left a crime, he had to leave a riddle.
That's what
he
has, though.
Do a crime if there
I feel like he still has that sometimes. Not in the current comics, because everything is terrible in the current comics, because we have terrible writers, Tom King. But I feel like that still is explored with Riddler, but what's also explored is his, like, obsession with attention. If you want a great Riddler story, read Questions Multiply the Mystery. Is undoubtedly the greatest Riddler story ever told. And while 0 Year is a better story, or it's a better Batman story, Questions Multiply the Mystery is the best Riddler story that focuses on Riddler. It's absolutely amazing, and he's absolutely deranged in it. It's a great book. I highly recommend it. One of the greatest Batman stories ever told. But yeah, I love Riddler. My favorite version of Riddler outside of the comics is probably the Arkham games, followed by the Gotham TV show.
The thing is about Riddler, you said explored when I was talking about that version. The modern Riddler, that is explored, and I want it to be him. Been explored enough. I mean, that was the original Riddler. I feel like that should just be Riddler. Like, Joker is kind of always Joker. He's nothing much else. Like, there's not extremely different versions of Riddler. Joker. Like, for instance, Joker he's not challenging Batman in any other way than he normally does, trying to kill people and grabbing Batman's attention. But then Riddler, is multiple different things in different series. Like, he could be trying to get Batman's attention, he could be trying to challenge him in intelligence, and I feel like he should just be the insane robber. Be insanely intelligent, insane.
You brought up a point about Joker being like always jokery, but I think that Joker, Maddie, I should probably feed him. Sorry, I was talking to my sister. So you brought up a point about Joker always being. You brought up a point about Joker always being jokery, but I don't think he.
Fletcher, you have to leave right now.
Yeah, Fletcher, leave. Okay, sorry. So to finally get to my point, you brought up a point about Joker always being jokery, but I feel like Joker is one of the villains. Joker is not. He's less of a character and more of an idea. He's a concept. And while he's always similar in every version, I feel like all Batman villains should be kind of like concepts. I feel like there should be radically different versions of all of them because they're all so old, and when you stick to the same thing, it may get boring after a while. I think that I love different versions of my characters, and while I do have a favorite version of every character, I think that with like characters like Riddler, Joker, I feel like they're all open to interpretation. But my favorite version of Riddler is the smug, arrogant man who's like just obsessed with getting attention. So, would you like to have your number 2?
Okay, my number 2 is, you're probably surprised this is my number 1, Dark Knight Joker. The reasoning he's my favorite one is because he has a plan for everything.
He does.
Yet has a plan for nothing. What I mean by that is, he just thinks he has a plan for nothing. He thinks he's just a wild card. But then he has, like, this master plan that no matter what Batman does, he'll still try to come on top in some way.
Definitely. Yeah, that version
even
of the Joker
tried
is
shopping
so good.
Gordon's child. He had such a plan. He probably took a long time to do these things of winning. Yes.
So the Dark Knight Joker is definitely amazing. He is probably my favorite live-action portrayal of the Joker. He is a genius. He's always had a plan. And also, I think the main critique people have of him is he's not funny. I strongly disagree. I think that...
and the actor for Joker died doing that.
Yeah, he's amazing. The actor. That movie was amazing. But Joker...
And especially that the actor was mostly in romance movies. He just really, had a wide range of
such a
things
good
he
range.
was able to do.
Rest in peace, Heath Ledger. But Joker in that movie is my favorite live-action version of the Joker and my second favorite version of him overall, outside of the comics, of course. My favorite version of him is from the animated series and in the Arkham video games, just because I feel like that's where I feel like Joker should be the crazy... Like, that movie gave a great reinterpretation of the Joker, but I feel like the definitive Joker is the Arkham games, because that, to me, that was perfect Joker, with him being, he was funny, he was played by Mark Hamill, he was, explored well, because he, of course, his obsession with Batman, and, but Dark Knight Joker, I will never deny that he's incredible, the best live-action Joker, by far. He is starting to get a little less popular among the he's still popular among, people who aren't hardcore Batman fans, but I feel like people are starting to get tired of that version of the Joker. And honestly, I am too. Because now in modern comics, because of that movie, if Joker breathes, Joker fanboys will say, deep. So, it's just so annoying. But I do think that is a great version of the Joker. One of the best. Alright.
Another thing about that Joker purely is that, he's just so well written.
He is.
I'm just going over how...
Yeah, I could rant for hours about Joker.
Let's go to the next one.
My number 1. You know who my number 1 is. You probably could have guessed earlier who my number 1 is based on how I talked about him. My number 1 is, of course, the Scarecrow. Scarecrow is the, in my opinion, greatest thing to ever happen to mankind since sliced bread. In fact, to quote a YouTuber named Mr. Rhodes, I believe he is better than sliced bread. I believe that Scarecrow is the greatest character of all time. I love his design, of course. I love his concept. There's nothing I could say about Scarecrow that I haven't already said before. Scarecrow is amazing. He's amazing. Like, my favorite version of Scarecrow is Arkham games. My favorite Scarecrow comic is this comic Fear for Sale. But that's something else. I want to touch on him in the comics, because I think the most disappointing thing about modern Batman is the misuse of Batman's villains and how little he's used. But I feel like throughout all of history, Scarecrow has just not been used enough. I feel like he hasn't had his definitive story. He's certainly had amazing stories in the comics and certainly had amazing versions. I don't think like we've gotten the definitive Scarecrow. But I
gotta wrap this up. I gotta go. I have to go.
Wait, can you say your number one?
I have to wrap this up.
Yeah, your number one.
My number one is Two-Face from Arkham Knight. The reason he's my favorite is because, I mean, well, he really isn't the shine of his little side missions in it. What really shines is, like, how good it is. It's just everything you want inside of that little thing. Everything that you've learned to do, your fighting, stealth, it just feels like a real Batman mission to me. Because you're sneaking around and you only have a short time before they win. They're taking money. And then when he comes out and then he's working with other ones like he does and other things, he like has villains from the Arkham Knight. And so it's a little hard to take him out, but you can just camp in the corner like I did when I was playing it. But
I beat him by throwing him on the elevator. I like electrocuting him. I do think Arkham had a great Two-Face.
He was a good character.
He was a good character too. Arkham Knight did explore him well out of all the Arkham games, but I just think he wasn't used enough. I think that Arkham Origins missed out on not making it a Two-Face origin and not making him the main villain. I like Two-Face, but in those games, and I love Two-Face, as you saw from my number 5 on this list, but I don't think Arkham Knight is the best version, just because while he's written well, he isn't written enough, I don't think, and he's not explored that much. While I think in like the animated series, and in even like in Batman Brave and the Bold, and in the Batman Telltale games, he's a better character overall, or because he just has more to do and more to say, and he's more interesting. But I do think that mission is a very good mission. I do think it's probably one of the best side missions there is, and it's probably one of the best combats or Predator stages in that game. Yeah, so those were our top 5 Batman villains. I need to go kill Grayson for insulting Scarecrow earlier. We'll see you in the next video. Bye!